Dr. Oliver Hayes crawled from the burning wreckage of his research vessel into a cavern of crystals and shadows, completely unaware that golden serpentine eyes had been watching him for the past 3 days. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of melting electronics as he dragged himself across rough stone floors, scraping bloody palms against jagged edges. His ship's emergency beacon lay crushed in front of a pile of rubble, blocking his path back to eat a useless lump of twisted metal now that it had failed him yet again. "Okay, Oliver," he muttered through gritted teeth. "You've survived worse." A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face as the reality of this situation sank deeper into his already fatigued brain. "Wait, no you haven't." He groaned loudly at himself before continuing on with a renewed vigor born from sheer stubbornness. A sharp intake of breath reminded him he was injured more than just scrapes and bruises. There had to be something broken in the mess he'd called home for weeks. It didn't matter right now, though his primary focus needed to shift away from repairing said wreck. Oliver's eyes swept over every available surface looking for anything useful, while still trying desperately not to make too much noise. Unseen above him, on a ledge of pure crystal, Vyranthra observed the human with her ancient gaze unflinching. She knew this cavern like she did all others within miles of every alcove and crevice that might serve as a hiding place or ambush spot in any battle long since past. But tonight was different. Here was no enemy seeking to challenge her, only curiosity. She tilted her head slightly, watching with an amused interest how he moved around the cave systematically. The thought crossed her mind briefly that she should approach him, but instinct and centuries of solitude held her back. Instead, her eyes followed his every movement as if tracking prey, though there was nothing predatory in her demeanor now. Oliver paused beside a pile of smaller rocks near what appeared to be an underground lake, his face set in concentration despite the pain from moving around so much after such trauma. He needed supplies desperately, and these crystals might just hold minerals he could use later for repairs or perhaps even barter with. His fingers began picking through the stones carefully while speaking aloud again. "This is insane," Oliver said to himself before adding hastily, "but then, everything was always a little bit insane." He chuckled softly despite his situation, shaking some of it off as he moved on, back towards where flames still flickered weakly inside the ship's main section now that most fuel had burned away. A faint hope sparked within him. Beacon maybe wasn't beyond saving yet. With newfound determination, Oliver pushed himself up from leaning against a rock and made his way back slowly but steadily toward the wreckage site. Vyranthra's eyes narrowed slightly as she watched this display of fortitude. She respected strength in others regardless of species. Humans might be short-lived compared to her own kind, but there was undeniable tenacity here that intrigued her greatly. Yet, caution remained paramount no matter how interesting a subject became. Protecting oneself always came first. As Oliver reached the smoldering remains of his ship once more, he took stock of what materials were salvageable at all. Several unburnt cables and connectors lying scattered amidst ashes proved to be surprisingly intact given everything else that had burned up. This tiny victory brought him a small smile. Maybe something could still come from this disastrous mission after all. "I am going to fix you," Oliver promised aloud with renewed vigor, "and then find out where exactly in the universe I ended up." He started working on patching together these remaining parts of his beacon system, while muttering under his breath every step along the way. His voice carried slight desperation mixed with fierce resolve. That were traits that would prove crucial for surviving not only this crash, but potentially whatever lay ahead beyond its immediate aftermath. Meanwhile, Vyranthra continued watching from afar, her eyes never leaving Oliver's figure even as he lost himself completely in repair work. She had seen many creatures throughout the ages rise and fall over time periods far shorter than what she herself experienced daily, yet here was one tiny spark amidst all this darkness fighting back against certain doom with everything inside him. As night deepened around them, so too did Oliver's efforts intensify, until eventually exhaustion took its toll, leaving no choice but to settle down temporarily near his work area. He wrapped himself in spare blankets and prepared mentally for another day ahead, knowing full well tomorrow would bring new challenges, while also hopefully progress towards escape plans. Little did he know how much more complex those plans were about to become, due entirely to one silent observer who watched over him like a protective guardian. With the stars shining down upon their hidden sanctuary, both man and dragoness prepared themselves for an uncertain future, Oliver clinging tightly on to hope that somehow redemption awaited beyond these cave walls, while Vyranthra continued her vigilance, feeling something stir within her long-dormant heart. Oliver Hayes awoke to darkness, the kind that seeps into every crevice of your mind and makes you question if there's even a universe outside this cave anymore. The only sound was his own ragged breathing and the distant drip, drip, drip from somewhere deep within the mountain's belly. His back stiffened as he lifted himself onto one elbow, rubbing his eyes vigorously to clear away sleep. Rations, he muttered under his breath, with a sense of dread creeping up on him like cold fingers. He had been counting them meticulously, every morning and night. Ration number 8 was all that remained, enough for perhaps another week or so before starvation set in again, if anything could be salvaged from the wreckage. But as Oliver's hands searched blindly through his meager supplies, a chill ran down his spine when he discovered something entirely unexpected: fresh water dripping into an old metal cup, and beside it were several strange fruits unlike any he had ever seen. They glowed softly in a way that seemed almost magical under the weak cave lighting. Did I dream this? Oliver asked no one but himself as he stared at the offerings with disbelief. With trembling fingers, he picked up the water first, taking small sips to quench his thirst before turning his attention back to the fruit. It was unlike anything on earth, nooks and crannies in its surface that seemed designed for holding a secret within each bite. He hesitated only briefly before biting into it. The taste was explosive, a symphony of flavors, both sweet and tangy, making him feel suddenly full despite having no idea where these wonders came from or why they were there beside his campsite like this. It left behind an unmistakable energy buzz in his veins, which kept him going for hours beyond what he had expected possible. For days thereafter, the pattern repeated itself, waking up hungry, but finding fresh sustenance, without any clue to its originator, except a growing suspicion that perhaps nature was being oddly kind here after all, or worse still, Somion, or something more sinister at play behind the scenes. Oliver's initial fear gave way to cautious optimism mixed with an escalating sense of intrigue. One morning, as he stared down into his newly filled cup and munched contentedly on another piece of fruit, a low growl caught in his throat. When it dawned upon him, there was no logical explanation for all these strange occurrences happening around him save one conclusion which sent chills up his spine: the idea that perhaps he wasn't alone after all. Who's out there?" Oliver called out tentatively towards the darkness beyond, but received nothing in return. His voice echoed back to him like a mocking ghost of himself trapped within these cavernous walls. He shook off the sensation with determined resolve, not wanting his mind to conjure up monsters where none existed yet. Invisible guardian. As days turned into weeks and supplies continued their mysterious replenishment daily, Oliver's frustration began to mount alongside increasing weariness from both physical exertion repairing his ship as well as mental strain trying to decipher this bizarre turn of events. The day finally came when desperation pushed him beyond careful boundaries he had set for himself, risking falling down the steep ravine that marked one side of where his cave lay nestled. One misstep could have sent him tumbling into nothing. Nessa thought so stark and final, it would normally send any man's heart racing wildly with fear. But not this time, in fact. Just as Oliver felt gravity take hold pulling him away from safety, another sensation caught him entirely off guard, invisible hands grabbing his arms firmly to steady himself. "I could have sworn," he murmured aloud, when finally back on solid ground once more, blinking at empty air above where those phantom grips should have been visible, if not for some sort of magical trickery playing upon his senses. Fear slowly turned into awe as reality settled around him, like a fog lifting away from dawn's first light. Vyranthra watched all these scenes unfold with growing admiration and concern etched deeply within her golden eyes, every day seeing Oliver push harder against fate, while also enduring the inexplicable gifts she left behind, hoping to give strength without revealing herself. This was not how things usually happened for anyone who ended up here, a place meant mostly as sanctuary rather than stage. "So fragile," Vyranthra whispered softly in Draconian tongue, her voice barely audible even inside her own mind, yet still resonating with profound emotion seldom felt since long before the Extinction Wars, when life had been full of companionship and shared dreams under open skies. "Why does he not give up?" Her answer lay staring back at her through Oliver's determined eyes. Every time she risked venturing closer to observe him repairing his damaged vessel, each attempt leaving both sides wondering whether this could somehow lead towards understanding between vastly different beings whose worlds hadn't touched for centuries now. A new hope emerges. Oliver felt an inexplicable sense of calm settling over him after that near fatal fall. Something about the sensation of unseen help had left a deep impression within his subconscious mind, stirring questions far more potent than mere curiosity or fear could ever hope to achieve alone. As he resumed work on salvaging parts from his crashed ship with renewed vigor and determination, there was an underlying awareness nagging at him: no, Somion, or something might be watching out for him even if it remained hidden. This thought gave him strength like never before when facing new challenges posed by repairing complex technology amidst harsh mental conditions far beyond Earth's atmosphere. He would often find himself glancing around suspiciously, half expecting to spot a pair of large golden eyes peering back from shadows, but finding nothing tangible in their place instead. "Is it all just my imagination running wild?" Oliver asked aloud while examining some burnt circuitry one evening as dusk began falling over the cave entrance. He paused for long minutes, lost within thoughts swirling through his mind, possibilities that until recently would have seemed ridiculous yet now held an allure impossible to ignore completely without further investigation. Meanwhile, Vyranthra continued her silent guardianship, feeling more conflicted with each passing day, her instincts pushing hard against rational caution, advising against revealing herself too soon when this human was clearly resilient enough, perhaps worth trying something new after all these lonely years spent waiting out time itself. Each night as Oliver drifted off into slumber, she would perch quietly nearby, observing him closely, hoping somehow without breaking her vow of secrecy, maybe find a way towards mutual understanding instead. As night once again fell heavily over their shared world, both beings prepared themselves for what tomorrow might bring, Oliver clinging tightly onto hope that somehow redemption awaited beyond these cave walls, while Vyranthra continued her vigilance, feeling something stir within her long dormant heart. The following morning, as Oliver stepped out of his makeshift shelter and into the dawn's light filtering through cracks in the cave wall, he felt a peculiar chill despite the warmth that usually permeated this part of the mountain range. It was an odd sensation, like being watched by something unseen yet impossible to ignore. While gathering materials for another round of repairs on his ship's hull, Oliver noticed unusual scratch marks etched into one of the cavern walls near where he had set up camp. The scratches appeared too deep and precise to have been caused naturally, or even by any animal life form that might inhabit these parts. His archaeological instincts kicked in immediately. These was no ordinary mark. "Hold on," Oliver murmured, bending down closer for a better look at the intricate patterns etched into the rock surface. They were more than just scratches. They appeared to be some kind of ancient Dracontine script or pictogram that he had read about only briefly during his early studies as an undergraduate student in xenolinguistics. Could this really belong to those long-lost Dracontines? Oliver whispered, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and disbelief. The idea was preposterous given everything known about their extinction more than 3 centuries ago, but the evidence before him refused to be dismissed so easily now that he had stumbled upon it. Driven by a fierce determination not to let this opportunity slip away, Oliver decided right then that today would mark his most significant exploration yet within these cave systems. He needed answers, even if they came from beyond what was supposed to exist according to every historical document ever written about Dracontine civilization. With only minimal supplies for such an undertaking, but armed with nothing more than sheer willpower and a desperate need for knowledge, Oliver ventured deeper into the labyrinthian passages of rock and stone. The closer he got to areas untouched by his earlier explorations, the more complex these engravings became, until finally reaching a large chamber where ancient carvings covered nearly every surface available. These weren't just simple marks anymore. They told stories of the rise and fall of an entire civilization, wars fought between factions who once shared skies under one banner before being torn apart by conflict. Each image conveyed tales, not only through pictures, but also in the form of symbols whose meanings became clearer with each passing moment spent deciphering them. Impossible, Oliver breathed out loud as realization dawned upon him alongside growing dread. They can't be extinct if this still exists here. Just then, without warning, a chilling voice echoed from behind. Not quite. It was soft yet powerful enough to make the hairs on his neck stand up straight. Oliver spun around slowly, facing what could only be described as an actual living Dracontine standing before him. The sight of Vyranthra in her full form took away any remaining breath left inside Oliver's lungs. She towered over him with iridescent emerald scales glistening under dim lighting conditions. Large leathery wings spread wide open while she kept one powerful foot planted firmly onto cold stone ground beneath. Vyranthra was a magnificent being indeed, her eyes glowing warmly despite her imposing presence that demanded respect as well as fear from anyone unlucky enough to encounter her fully unmasked. Yet there was also something else hidden within those serpentine orbs. Perhaps it could be described best by saying they seemed filled with curiosity, mixed together alongside traces of vulnerability which hadn't shown themselves before this very moment. "Now, you're magnificent," Oliver managed, his voice trembling slightly despite efforts to remain calm and composed under such extraordinary circumstances. His glasses slipped askew on nose, but he didn't bother adjusting them right away, instead choosing simply stare in awe at what stood before him. Vyranthra regarded him silently for a long moment, then finally spoke again, this time much more clearly, even if using the Draconian tongue. "I am Vyranthra." "You are correct. I thought myself alone here still." Her voice held both pride and sorrow within its melody. Oliver blinked rapidly, trying to process everything happening around him, while searching desperately for any words appropriate enough given the gravity of this situation unfolding before his eyes right now. He knew full well that making a wrong move or saying something unintentionally offensive might end very badly indeed, but at least she hadn't attacked yet, which was one small victory worth noting. "Thank you, Vyranthra," Oliver began carefully, after clearing throat for better speech clarity. "My name is Dr. Oliver Hayes, a xenoarchaeologist from Earth studying various ancient species across galaxy." He paused momentarily, letting those facts sink in both mentally as well physically before continuing. "Further explanation needed here and now." Vyranthra's golden eyes narrowed slightly, showing surprise hidden beneath surface of prideful mask she wore around strangers, but after another moment softened considerably, once again revealing emotions long since thought dead or buried deep within past regrets. This human managed somehow to inspire feelings dormant inside her even after living alone so very many years. "Why do you not flee?" she asked curiously, tilting head slightly while folding wings close against body in more relaxed posture compared just moments ago, when fully spread out ready for fight if necessary, had been evident previously. Oliver shook his head slowly, the understanding question implied between lines clearly visible here now. Because I believe we have something important to share with each other," he replied honestly, looking straight into those golden eyes, searching deeply within soul behind them, seeking truth beyond surface appearances easily misinterpreted under current circumstances surrounding both of their existence on this lonely planet. Vyranthra studied him quietly for another long while before sighing softly. "Very well then, human Oliver Hayes," she finally agreed, gently lowering herself down closer onto ground where they could converse more easily face to face rather than relying heavily upon body language alone, and a more which worked far better during earlier stages of communication between two beings. As sun began setting, casting orange hues across sky outside cave entrance, Vyranthra shared stories about Draconian culture and history through vivid descriptions, while Oliver listened intently, absorbing every detail offered freely for first time ever to anyone other than herself in centuries past, when entire society existed thriving here together, but now long gone, leaving only memories carved into stones remaining witnesses today, still standing tall, resilient against forces trying to erase them completely. This newfound connection brought unexpected warmth between two beings from entirely different worlds, yet finding common ground through shared thirst, knowledge, understanding. As night fell heavily over their world, both prepared themselves for what tomorrow might bring. Oliver clinging tightly onto hope that somehow redemption awaited beyond these cave walls, while Vyranthra continued vigilance, feeling something stir within heart long dormant years since lost among stars now shining brighter than ever before. Du present of this one human brave enough to seek truth, instead running away scared. And as Oliver finished speaking, his voice quieted to a whisper, as if unsure of what else he could say in this moment that seemed both crucial and fragile. all at once. Vyranthra's eyes glowed softly under the dim light from their small fire, her golden serpentine gaze piercing yet softening slightly with every word Oliver uttered. "Very well then, human Oliver Hayes," she finally agreed gently, after a long silence. She lowered herself onto the ground closer to him, where they could converse more easily face to face, rather than relying heavily upon body language alone anymore, which worked far better during earlier stages of communication between two beings. Her wings folded neatly against her back, and her massive form seemed slightly smaller now that she was seated in a relaxed posture. Oliver felt his heart race as he realized how much this moment meant to both of them. He had been so focused on surviving the crash and repairing his ship that these past few days with Vyranthra were almost surreal, like stepping into a story from one of his favorite novels, where ancient myth met scientific reality. Vyranthra tilted her head slightly as she prepared to speak. "I will tell you my story," she said softly, her voice carrying both an air of reverence and sorrow. "But know that it is heavy with the weight of centuries." Oliver nodded solemnly, his own heart aching at the thought of such isolation over so long a time. Vyranthra began to share fragments of Dracontine history in vivid detail, painting pictures through her words rather than just explaining facts. She spoke about their ancient cities built into mountainsides and valleys where they dwelled among the clouds, describing how each one was constructed from stone that shimmered with iridescence, as if woven by light itself. "You have seen my cave," she said quietly, "but imagine a city carved directly out of living rock. Paths winding up cliff faces like veins reaching for sunlight high above them. Every home sculpted into the very essence of earth." Oliver listened intently, his mind racing to visualize these places that sounded both magnificent and impossible at once. "Centuries ago," Vyranthra continued, "our people thrived here in harmony with nature's rhythm, sacred dances under starlit skies during solstices marking time's passage. We were guardians of wisdom passed down through millennia." The air around them seemed to grow colder as Vyranthra spoke of the extinction wars that devastated her world and race. "Then came darkness," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with emotion nonetheless. "Empires clashed over power, resources dwindled under scorched earth tactics, and our kind—" She paused here for a moment, looking away from Oliver as if searching within herself rather than focusing on him. "Our numbers were already small after millennia of peace and introspection," she continued, turning back to meet his gaze once more. "In those final days, when all seemed lost, last remnants of Dracontine scattered across the globe trying desperately just to survive, I remain." Oliver watched as Vyranthra's eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and pride, an emotion he couldn't name but understood deeply from his own life. "For 300 years," she said finally, "I have lived here alone, watching stars change patterns while remembering songs that no longer echo through the valleys below." Her voice broke slightly on this last part before regaining its usual strength, though now carrying a deeper resonance with an hidden acceptance and perhaps hope. Oliver felt his throat constrict with emotion as he realized how much they had in common despite their vastly different existences. He shared his own struggle, so being an academic often meant isolation from others who didn't understand or appreciate the depths of what drove him to explore ancient ruins across galaxies. "You are brilliant," Vyranthra said, her voice holding genuine admiration mixed with curiosity. "Yet you also seem alone." Oliver nodded slowly in agreement, feeling a weight lift slightly off his shoulders as he spoke openly. about this aspect of himself for the first time without self-judgment or defensiveness. Always more comfortable among dead civilizations than living people, Oliver admitted softly after another long pause. But maybe you and you were not so different. Vyranthra's eyes softened further, a rare smile curving her lips, as if she found this comparison both humorous yet poignant at the same time. Perhaps, she said slowly, leaning in closer with an almost conspiratorial air about it, we are both ruins. This simple statement held profound meaning, for Oliver saw himself reflected back through Vyranthra's eyes, not just as a broken shipwreck, but also as part of something larger and more enduring than his immediate circumstances suggested. In that moment, under the orange glow cast by suns at outside their cave entrance, two souls from entirely different worlds found unexpected kinship. Their connection felt tenuous yet strong, all at once a bridge built through shared understanding across vast chasms of time, space, and culture. As night fell heavily over their world, shadows crept deeper into corners where light could not reach, not just in the cave, but within hearts long hardened by solitude or fear. Yet even as darkness descended around them, a flicker remained, the promise of what might come next morning, when sun would rise again on this lonely planet. Oliver found himself staring out at starlit sky beyond their fire-lighted space inside cave. The night breeze carried chill air through entrance, but did little to dispel warmth growing between him and Vyranthra, despite physical distance separating them, still very much present here now, in reality, where ancient dragon could not fully reveal herself yet. Will tomorrow bring redemption? He wondered aloud, more to himself than anyone else around, though. He felt eyes watching intently from across small room filled with both comfortingly familiar tools scattered about Oliver's work area, and unfamiliar, but equally fascinating items belonging uniquely to Draconian culture left untouched by human hands for centuries now fallen silent. Vyranthra's golden gaze met his, holding unwaveringly the same unspoken question: what would come next in this strange dance of fates, woven together through chance encounter amidst cosmic isolation? With sun beginning ascent once more high above their world, signaling end of night's grip over lonely planet, where ancient dragon and human found unlikely connection, under dim firelight casting long shadows, inside cave filled with secrets shared for first time after centuries alone, both prepared themselves anew, facing unknowns ahead, with newfound hope flickering brightly despite remaining uncertainties surrounding their future path together yet to be fully determined. And the morning after their intimate conversation, Oliver woke to find Vyranthra already awake and watching him closely. The sun was just beginning its ascent in the sky outside, casting long shadows that illuminated her form as she stood near the entrance of her cave. Her emerald scales shimmered softly with each shift of light. "Good morning," Oliver said quietly, stretching his arms out before them to ease out any stiffness from sleeping on makeshift cushions. Vyranthra inclined her head in acknowledgement, and then turned back towards a section of the cave where she had been studying something closely. "Oliver, I have observed more about your distress beacon while you slept." He approached curiously, as Vyranthra gestured for him to look at the device she held high, his own distress signal he'd activated weeks ago in an attempt to alert others back home. "These frequencies are widespread," Vyranthra explained. "Any passing craft on a routine patrol will pick up your beacon." Oliver nodded, understanding the gravity of her statement immediately. He had been alone with only his tools and ingenuity for so long that it felt surreal to think anyone might actually respond now after all these weeks. There's something else, Vyranthra continued somberly, turning back towards him fully, this time with a concerned expression on her face. The Scourge Legion patrols these regions. They will recognize Dracontine signatures and treat them as threats. Oliver felt his heart drop to the pit of his stomach at those words. What was once just a signal for help now threatened an entirely different kind of danger. Threats, he echoed back, trying hard not to let panic set in. Vyranthra nodded solemnly. They will see you as trespasser and me. They would exterminate Dracontine on sight. The realization hit Oliver like a physical blow. His beacon had been transmitting for weeks now without any interference, because the surrounding area was too far from civilization. But that also meant it could be just one stray patrol away from being picked up. Can we hide? He asked quickly, his mind racing with possibilities. If they haven't found us yet. Vyranthra shook her head firmly, scales catching in low light filtering through cave entrance. Too late for hiding, she said sadly but resolutely. They will find you eventually. Oliver's chest tightened as a chill ran down his spine. He knew she was right, and there wasn't much they could do about it except brace themselves. Then what? Oliver asked, needing to know the next step, even if he dreaded its answer. Vyranthra sighed deeply before stepping closer, until their faces were almost touching in shared contemplation of this new reality pressing down upon them. I must leave, she said quietly, but with unwavering determination in her golden eyes, which seemed now more vibrant than ever undershadowed cave ceiling above them both. No, Oliver blurted out instantly, pulling back and grasping hold of her arm firmly, if only to keep her ground. Be there beside him for a moment longer. You can't. I won't let them erase you. A strange mixture of emotions flitted across Vyranthra's face, surprise at his actions, mixed with something akin to gratitude perhaps, or even hope. Oliver, she said gently but firmly, again after collecting herself enough from the unexpected touch. You have no choice. You're human. I will protect you. But he was adamant now in this decision, as well. Oliver had come too far here, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, to turn back on something so profound. I refuse to let them take that away, Oliver replied with equal resolve, shining brightly behind his glasses fogged slightly from breath caught suddenly mid-sentence. I'll find a way around it. Vyranthra's gaze softened further upon seeing the fire burning fiercely in those determined green eyes, now more vibrant than ever, undershadowed cave ceiling above them both. I will not leave you to face this alone, she declared finally, after letting his words settle deeply into her heart. But neither shall we hide from truth. With renewed purpose, Oliver turned back towards his distress signal with new focus, no aiming beyond mere survival and rescue efforts, but something far greater in scope of protecting what he'd come to value most here. I need to broadcast again, Oliver stated firmly, after a moment's pause for collecting thoughts into actionable plans. This time, I'll warn them about Dracontine traces instead. Vyranthra watched him closely as he began adjusting settings on the distress signal device, fingers moving with practiced precision despite earlier wear and tear from long use without proper maintenance. What will you say? She queried softly, stepping closer again to observe his work up close now. Oliver looked up briefly, meeting her gaze before continuing adjustments. I'll tell them Dracontine survived extinction, he explained seriously. Tell the Scourge Legion that an ancient civilization still lives and deserves protection under archaeological preservation laws. A flicker of hope lit within Vyranthra's eyes at his words. A sentiment echoed in growing strength, found deep within Oliver himself. Let us find our redemption then, she murmured quietly, but with resolve, her emerald scales gleaming brightly now as they moved together towards completion of this task that would decide much about their future here on this lonely planet beneath starlit skies above them both. Oliver and Vyranthra stood side by side as the signal began transmitting once more. It carried a new message across vast distances, a plea for recognition rather than destruction, for understanding over annihilation. The Scourge Legion's ships soon arrived with heavy-footed caution due to Dracantine traces detected through Oliver's broadcast warning. Soldiers emerged from their craft armed and ready despite the oddity of encountering human survivors in these remote regions unvisited by any civilization since centuries ago wars wiped out ancient races, including Dracantine. "What have we got here?" barked a stern voice over calms as soldiers marched into view, rifles at ready stance, but eyes flickering curiously between Oliver's damaged ship and Vyranthra's towering form lingering just inside cave entrance, still cloaked in shadows barely lit by distant glow of sunlight filtering through high up rocky crevices overhead. "Identify yourself," another soldier commanded tersely as they approached cautiously while scanning area with advanced sensors capable detecting even the faintest signs of life force energy within range. Oliver stepped forward boldly, his voice clear and strong despite tremors catching at throat momentarily. "I am Dr. Oliver Hyasa, xenoarchaeologist from Earth on mission to study Dracantine civilization," he declared plainly, then quickly added explanation without missing a beat as realization dawned slowly but surely across soldiers' faces. "We found Dracantine signatures during exploration here and managed survival despite crash landing months ago when ship malfunctioned in storm." Oliver continued swiftly, hoping logic would win over initial shock at encountering such ancient being alive, much less surviving centuries since supposed extinction. "My signal broadcast has informed you of this discovery." A tense silence fell over group as they absorbed his words. Vyranthra watched them closely from behind protective shadow, gauging reactions with keen eyes that missed nothing despite cold serpentine gaze seeming distant yet focused. Under archaeological preservation laws, Oliver pressed onward unhesitatingly, now fully engaged in arguing case strongly for Dracantine recognition and protection rather than extermination. "This discovery deserves study, not destruction." Soldiers' calms crackled briefly as High Command debated their course of action. Oliver could feel tension mounting visibly across faces surrounding him, even as Vyranthra shifted slightly further into shadows, perhaps preparing herself mentally should worse come to worse scenario unfolding before them. "We will need verification," stern voice over calms eventually declared after tense few moments of deliberation. "Evidence proving your claims." Oliver nodded resolutely, understanding fully that mere words alone wouldn't be enough without concrete proof backing up his statements regarding Dracantine survival amidst supposed extinction narratives long accepted by galactic community. "I understand, and will provide necessary documentation," he replied immediately, while glancing back briefly towards Vyranthra, who watched him with silent support before turning attention back to soldiers still assembled warily around them both. "We have evidence hidden within my ship, damaged but salvageable." A collective nod signaled agreement from Legion members present despite lingering skepticism among some regarding unorthodox situation presented here. Far away isolated world seemingly untouched by human presence until now. "Proceed," stern voice over calms finally allowed once conditions seem set for verifying claims made thus far during tense encounter under starlit skies high above lonely planet where ancient dragon and human found unlikely connection amidst cosmic isolation, still unfolding with unknowns ahead, facing uncertain future path together yet to be fully determined. As night began to fall heavily, again after sun setting on distant horizon, leaving behind long shadows within cave depths, filled now with flurry of activity, as Oliver worked alongside Legion members, gathering necessary documentation proving Dracontine traces truly did exist here, amidst supposedly extinct civilization waiting centuries, untouched under protective shadow provided by lone dragon woman watching closely from afar. Vyranthra's presence loomed ever closer despite remaining unseen, save for brief glimpse catching her golden eyes, reflecting warm glow cast by firelight flickering around Oliver as he worked tirelessly gathering evidence needed to verify claims made earlier amidst tense encounter with Scourge Legion soldiers still assembled cautiously outside cave entrance, ready once more should worse come to worst, but now showing signs of tentative approval towards Oliver's case, argued strongly for Dracontine recognition and protection rather than extermination. Oliver turned around suddenly, feeling weight lifting slightly off shoulders as Vyranthra stepped forward, finally fully revealing herself amidst gathering darkness descending heavily over Lonely Planet, where ancient dragon and human found unlikely connection under dim firelight, casting long shadows inside cave filled with secrets shared first time after centuries, alone now facing uncertain future path together yet to be fully determined. Perhaps, she said softly but resolutely, we are both ruins deserving redemption. Oliver's heart swelled at those words, emotional bond growing stronger between them despite physical distance still remaining very much present here in reality. Amidst cosmic isolation waiting unknowns ahead, under starlit skies high above Lonely Planet, where ancient dragon and human found unlikely connection, filling cave depths with hope flickering brightly, as sun began ascent once more, signaling end of night's grip, now facing uncertain future path together yet to be fully determined. With morning dawning anew over distant horizon, Oliver looked out towards rising sun, casting warm glow into their space inside cave. Shadows receded slowly, giving way to light spilling through entrance, where Vyranthra stood watching him carefully as he prepared himself for next steps ahead, facing Scourge Legion verification process ongoing amidst tense encounter still unfolding under starlit skies high above Lonely Planet. We will find a way, Oliver said, finally breaking silence that lingered heavily between them, now filled with shared understanding and unspoken hope flickering brightly despite remaining uncertainties surrounding their future path together yet to be fully determined. Together, Vyranthra's golden gaze met his warmly, in mutual agreement. The promise of what might come next morning, when sun would rise again on this lonely planet where ancient dragon and human found unlikely connection, now facing unknowns ahead under starlit skies high above Lone Mountain cave system filled with hope flickering brightly amidst cosmic isolation. The sun rose high once more over their world as both prepared themselves anew for the challenges ahead. A bridge built between two vastly different beings through shared determination and mutual respect. Despite the shadows of doubt that lingered in the corners of their minds, an unwavering light burned within them, a flicker of hope that promised something beyond survival, redemption. And the morning sun filtered through the cave entrance, casting a warm glow over Oliver and Vyranthra as they stood in silent contemplation. Outside, the Scourge Legion Eldirs had begun to disperse, their commander reluctantly agreeing that Dr. Hayes' discovery was too significant for destruction or isolation. Instead of extermination orders, he issued a command for immediate reinforcements, an archaeological team with a mission to study and protect Vyranthra and her dwelling. Inside the cave, Oliver worked feverishly to gather more evidence of photographs, audio recordings, even samples from various artifacts scattered around the room where they had first met. Every item was meticulously catalogued, as if he were setting up for an exhibition back on Earth. But this time, it wasn't just about science. There was a personal stake in ensuring Vyranthra's story would be told. Vyranthra watched him with curiosity and admiration, her emerald scales glinting under the sunlight. She had seen humans before, images etched into ancient stone tablets depicting their arrival on this world long ago, but never like Oliver. He was not a conqueror or destroyer, but someone driven by knowledge and wonder, a rare find indeed. "Why do you persist?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space where they now stood side by side among the remnants of her ancestors' civilization. "We could have ended this moment ago." Oliver turned to face her, his glasses reflecting glints from scattered light beams filtering through cracks and crevices high above them. He smiled gently, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration visible on his weathered features. "Because I believe in redemption," he replied softly, reaching out cautiously with one hand until their fingertips touched ever so lightly. "And you deserve that more than anyone else." As the day progressed, news filtered back to them through messages transmitted from outside. Additional teams were en route, and a protective barrier was being erected around the mountain range containing Vyranthra's cave, both for her safety and to preserve any remaining Dracontine artifacts. The Scourge commander had relayed orders that she would be treated as an ambassador of peace rather than an artifact of war. When one particularly tech-savvy member of the reinforcement team arrived, Oliver found himself face to face with Professor Isabella Chen, a renowned xenoarchaeologist from Earth's prestigious Aeon Research Institute. She was surprised to see him alive and well, but even more astonished by Vyranthra's presence. "Dr. Hayes," she began hesitantly, her eyes wide behind thick-rimmed glasses as they adjusted quickly to the dim lighting of the cave interior, "this is beyond anything we could have hoped for." Oliver nodded seriously, indicating Vyranthra, who had stepped slightly further back into shadows, but remained watchful. "Meet Professor Chen," he introduced with a wave. "We need your expertise here too, Isabella, or than you know." Chen's gaze darted nervously between Oliver and the awe-inspiring creature behind him before settling on her feet, where Vyranthra now stood fully revealed under dimmer, artificial lighting. "Vyranthra," she corrected gently, but with authority. "This is a new era for both humans and Dracontines." Days turned into weeks as teams from across galaxies arrived to catalog, analyze, and protect the cave system that had sheltered Vyranthra since her people's extinction over 3 centuries ago. Tensions eased significantly as more members of the Scourge Legion were convinced by Oliver's arguments, backed up with irrefutable evidence collected under Professor Chen's guidance. Meanwhile, within their private space deep in the mountainside, a bond between Oliver and Vyranthra grew stronger every day. He taught her basic human language, while she shared stories of Dracontine culture through intricate hand gestures and vivid imagery etched into cave walls, using frost from her breath, a magical combination that fascinated him. "Why did they abandon this place?" Oliver asked one evening, his eyes tracing ancient carvings depicting scenes of war followed by flight. "It seems so beautiful, so full of life." Vyranthra's golden gaze softened as she looked around their shared sanctuary before glancing back at Oliver. "We were running from our own shadows," she admitted softly. "The scars of conflict, the loss of hope. These things follow us no matter how far we fly. But here, she pointed towards a small alcove decorated with simple yet elegant designs. Here is where my heart has always been. Finally came the day when Vyranthra was officially declared by Intergalactic Council as protected cultural treasure, a symbol of resilience and hope amidst an era marked heavily by conflict. Representatives from multiple worlds gathered to witness this historic moment, while Oliver stood quietly beside her in acknowledgement. In front of everyone present, he approached Dr. Chen, who had become something akin to his mentor during these proceedings. "I don't want fame," Oliver said honestly, as plans for galactic tours and prestigious positions began circulating amidst excited chatter among attendees. "Or wealth. I already feel richer than ever just being here with Vyranthra." Surprised, Isabella looked down at him sharply before catching sight of her charge's proud stance beside the dragon woman. "And what exactly would you have us do then?" she asked pointedly, but not unkindly, sensing genuine sincerity in his words despite their initial skepticism about his motives. "I'd like to stay here," Oliver replied simply yet firmly, "to document Vyranthra's life and teaching her history before it's lost forever." A moment of silence hung heavy between them as realization dawned on Isabella's face, followed by a knowing smile she couldn't contain anymore. "Oliver Hayes," she declared suddenly, amidst the hushed murmurs now circulating amongst spectators, "you are being granted permission to establish your own research station here among these mountains." Turning back towards Vyranthra and extending an arm in offer of alliance, Isabella continued solemnly, "And as for this remarkable Dracantine lady?" Vyranthra's eyes lit up at the prospect of having more humans around who understood her significance and not just another wave to be washed away by time or conflict. To her, Dr. Chen concluded warmly before addressing all present attendees with authority and conviction, "We owe it not only to ourselves, but also future generations, to ensure that Vyranthra's story is never forgotten." With formalities completed, Oliver turned back towards Vyranthra, whose eyes were shimmering brightly now under reflected sunlight streaming through newly installed transparent barriers surrounding the mountain range. "Do you think it will accept?" she asked anxiously, though there was a hopeful glint in her golden gaze. "All these humans," he smiled reassuringly and stepped closer, placing one hand gently on her scaled arm, still cautious about giving in to an urge to embrace her fully despite growing comfort level. "I believe so," he replied softly yet firmly. "They will see what I did, the beauty of your people's legacy." Vyranthra sighed deeply, as if releasing years' worth of pent-up breath before nodding slowly, in agreement with his words and gestures meant solely for them both to understand fully now rather than hiding behind protective walls still present. As weeks turned into months, Oliver set up a small research station outside Vyranthra's cave, while inside their new shared living space filled gradually, over time, with books, maps, tools, all brought by kinder members of arriving teams. Each day found him beside her, teaching more about human languages and customs, whereas she conversely showed him Dracantine ways, melding together ancient knowledge with modern understanding under starlit skies high above lonely planet, where unlikely connection had blossomed amidst cosmic isolation. One cold night, as winter winds howled outside their sanctuary, Oliver finished recounting tales of Earth's distant past through translated stories written long ago by human ancestors. Exhausted but content from sharing so much history and culture together now at last, he curled up beside Vyranthra, who still remained somewhat wary due years spent alone prior to his arrival, wrapping her leathery wing protectively around him amidst shared warmth of firelight flickering softly within confines where ancient dragon and human found unlikely connection under dim shadows receding, slowly giving way once more as sun began ascent, signaling end yet another night's grip over lonely mountain range high above planet they now called home together. 3 centuries, Vyranthra whispered quietly into darkness filled with shared understanding and mutual respect burgeoning deeply between them after years spent hiding alone. And it was worth waiting to meet someone like you. Oliver smiled warmly back at her, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also immense gratitude for this newfound companionship amidst cosmic isolation under starlit skies high above, where unlikely connection had blossomed into something far greater than either could have ever imagined. End.